You're listening to the Law of Attraction Radio Network.
The secret to well-being is discovering the power that is your birthright, the power to create a happier, healthier life, drawn from our own vast internal resources. Join Jules and her guests as they gently guide you to shift your perspective from the familiar negative to the divinely connected, a place that will not only positively impact your world, but possibly shift the planet. It's all right here on Law of Attraction Talk Radio.
Well, welcome to Law of Attraction Talk Radio. I'm Jules from beautiful Southern California, and I'm so glad you could be with me. Tonight, we've got a very, very special woman with us. Her name is Lira Kay, and she has a background in psychotherapy. She is, oh wow, I just got to read you some of these things because she's like so super special in all of her areas of expertise. She's a psychic, a healer, angel whisperer, visionary, world traveler, artist, of course, life coach, speaker, and she really knows the law of attraction. Now, she likes to focus on helping entrepreneurs to get over that hump between working for money and working spiritually. She's got a really great message. And once you can tap into everything spiritually, the rest is a piece of cake. Then she is also what I would term to be a phenomenal life coach. And the reason for that is because she's lived through some very, very difficult circumstances, such as losing her husband at age 34 with 5 children. So she has been through things that really make her quite special. Because if a coach hasn't experienced life, well, then how are they going to be able to help you? And because she's psychic, she's also able to pick up the energies around you. So she is just one terrific coach. And I just want you to get to know her and to see how powerful and how wonderful. Oh, and did I mention that her homeland is actually Russia, Siberia? And I think that is really special because we have a very large group of people listening from Russia. So we're going to send a special message to them as well. So I just want you to kick back, relax, watch this video, or listen from Law of Attraction Radio Network, and we'll be right back with Lira Kay.
It's here, it's hot, and it's a must read. It's the science behind the Law of Attraction magazine. Every issue brings you great articles and in-depth how-tos from all your favorite Law of Attraction experts, authors, scientists, and medical professionals. Go to lawofattractionmagazine.net. That's lawofattractionmagazine.net.
Well, welcome, Lira, to Law of Attraction Talk Radio. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting. I am so honored and super excited because The Secret had been like one of my inspirational movies and books, and I'm just so excited to talk with you, Jules.
Great. Yeah, well, Law of Attraction is my favorite subject. It seems like it encompasses everything. So you are really into energy, and I love that because I think that is so important for people to understand the energy of everything so that we are better able to empower ourselves. And you've got the secrets to that. So that's why I wanted to bring you on.
Yes, absolutely. I've been taught how to do this stuff when I was a child. I was very lucky, really, really lucky. And there's some such simple ways to incorporate the energy even of nature into your life and manifest through that. It's fascinating.
Well, so you knew about it when you were a child. How did you learn about it? Were your parents involved with it, or how did you discover that something way beyond the 3D world as we know it?
Absolutely. I think, well, besides that, I do believe, and I've seen proof, honestly speaking, of that we are kind of born into the right families and with right ancestors in a way. For me, that's been the case. Yes, my ancestors on my mother's side are coming from Siberia, and they practice shamanism. In fact, this is like the active thing they're doing. And I guess from my grandmothers, both of them actually, I always heard this: Lira, you can wish for whatever you want. Lira, nature is the biggest source. This is what, it's all available to you. I heard that from when I was a little child, like maybe 5 years old. I was very aware. And, when you're a child and you're told those things, it's really, it settles there and you feel like you have a magic wand. I always described myself as a child, like I felt I had a magic wand. And I guess because now, by, studying it and knowing about it, I've definitely, and teaching about it, I really realized how much your faith really counts. Like you do really need to believe that you can do those things, because it's, opens up your energy, opens up your possibilities. And in a way, if it's like, if you have children, I have 5 of them, and, those things I tell them, I said, listen, look at the nature. Nature has energy. You can channel it. You can accept it, or you can just kind of be blind to it, and that's kind of sad, right? Because it's available to everybody, and we really use it, I think. And on the other hand, I had a father who was a famous artist and kind of an interesting character, famous one of the first Soviet gurus, if you want. I'm from Soviet Russia. That's where I grew up. And he had his own spiritual art school where we learned how to, and I was 17 when I entered that world. And we learned how to channel through art, how to channel anything you want, any information. And it's been a kind of, so I grew up with that kind of discipline of practice of meditation, and it's kind of a normal thing for me. I think when you brought up this way, you think, oh, everybody must be doing that. And then I realized, well, actually, I have this interesting background, interesting training, and what seems very easy to me, actually, other people can really benefit from. So when I'm teaching now, it's just, I'm teaching often all of those old, the kind of ancient wisdom, really, that we knew. And humanity always carried.
Wow.
So when the movie Secret came out, I was like, oh my goodness, yes, it's here now.
Finally, we're getting the...
I'm not the only one.
Well, Russia is so far ahead of us metaphysically. And it's like they are not afraid to go out there publicly and state things, whereas here, people are still like, should I say that I'm a psychic over here, or should I say I can see energy over here? People are too afraid to say that because they're afraid of being judged, but not in Russia.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's folklore. Everything kind of had been, and it's interesting, the whole history, because in a way, church had been kind of forbidden, right, for 70 years at least of the Soviet period. And I think that drove people to go somewhere and look for wisdom and look for comfort and look for inspiration. And it wasn't church. It was like, where do you find that spirituality? And I think what people did, they went to the roots, which is the almost pagan, old pagan, ancient traditions and religions, which is of course very much connected with energy, with nature, right? But that's where it all begins. Like, I think what people, skeptics maybe who talk about law of attraction, what they don't understand, that it exists in nature. So if you just look out, and I'm looking out from my office here, beautiful scenery that I have, this huge trees, and how much energy they contain, and how they are like grouping together, like all, like attracts like, all of just what we talked about previously. It's just happening all the time. So if we open our eyes to it, we kind of will see. And I think Russians do have that, traditionally, stereotypically have that passionate heart. So we do say what's on our heart, and maybe that's why we kind of get excited and open about our spirituality as well, instead of kind of waiting for permission and is it accepted, what's going to happen if I come out as a spiritual being.
Interesting. And I'm hoping that we here in the Western world will gravitate to that. I think we are. I think we're becoming open now. So more and more people are becoming aware of everything that they're made of. And so it is the perfect time. But we still need to hear from people like you. And I'm just delighted. You're living in California now?
That's right. That's right. I traveled the world. I've lived in many, actually pretty amazing places, starting from Russia. I was born in St. Petersburg. I grew up in Estonia, which is very similar, but yet so different culturally. And I lived in UK, near London, for about 10 years. And then south of France, I've traveled Boston, and then eventually here in Bay Area of San Francisco, which I find quite a perfect place for me, in terms of community, people. I had, this buzz and entrepreneurial buzz too, which I really love because it's super creative, very spiritual as well. And we will probably touch on that subject. Because
yes.
Spirituality and business, I think, just go together. Absolutely. So.
Absolutely. But you've had a very, very interesting life. Some of it was a bit traumatic for you as well, because you have 5 children. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But you became a widow at age 34. And wow, that had to have been difficult. How did you get through that? Knowing what you know about energy, how did that, tell us about that.
Yeah, that was really interesting. It gave me even like just a reminder of that, kind of like my body is still feeling it, it was interesting because, somebody who had practiced, had been on that spiritual path from very, very early age, right? I had this idea that, spiritual people are untouchable. Like there's nothing bad ever going to happen to you. You're just going to have this happy life and you give to people. I started teaching and healing people when I was 17. So
Wow.
It's kind of like I've been on a path and doing so much. And I thought, it's not like I thought that that's the consequence, that nothing's going to happen, but I just didn't expect such a dramatic event happen in my life, and I got married. I was so happy. We had 3 children. And when the tragedy happened, I was really quite, I think, shocked. and one of my questions was, why is it happening to me? I think, and now when I work with clients, often people tell that to me, like, I'm a good person. Why is it happening to me? So I had that question too. And at the same time, because, and I'm smiling because I really feel like from very, very early age, it's like I've seen people and myself as a big spirit, as a soul that lives many lives. It's not just today. It's not always just about today. And so I kind of put things into perspective. So that's what helped me. And I was practicing art. Art was one of those ways that I practiced meditation, being with myself and really channeling the energy and being within the kind of higher energy of the universe. And what I did, I tell you what I did exactly. For about a year and a half, I used to go to the same pine tree and spend 15 minutes just sketching it. And that was my, first it was an escape, because that was happening while my husband was suffering from illness. And I knew the end is coming. And I just had to somehow find some safe place for me, because I had to take care of everything that was happening in the kind of background. And And I tell you, I discovered what happiness was, and I often tell about, and of course I see now people when they come in the midst of the crisis, and it seems like that's the worst ever, or most like ridiculous time to find some kind of peace or happiness. But in fact, this is it. Like when you have no other option as to surrender and as to just accept yourself with your guilt, with your whatever your anger, whatever comes to it, right? And that's what happened to me. I just had to sit with myself and see myself. And at some point I had no choices to accept the reality. This is what's happening, right? He's dying. And when it happened, I was kind of, I think, prepared. You know what? It kind of internally, it's felt like he's in a better place, and I'm just in this reality, and it's an opportunity, you know. And it's a weird thing to say because, of course, a lot of people around me were, you know, feeling sorry for me and treating me maybe a little bit like a victim, right? Like you're a victim of fate, of destiny. That's what happened to you, and it's terrible. But I always felt like there is a life for me. And one of the questions I asked was, what do I really want? And as a person who always had a career and I was always working and kind of obsessed with my work in a way, when I lost my husband, this is one thing I really realized, that I do really want to have a relationship in my life, a love in my life. And I kind of put it out there. I said, I want to experience love again. This is not the end for me. I will be happy again for my kids, of course, and for myself. And then I just withdrew from everything that was familiar. That's exactly what I did. I don't know whether it was the right thing to do or not, but I put myself in totally different place. And I just started working on myself, which is going deeper, really feeling super grounded within who I am, and recreating that ability to kind of just enjoy life. And it wasn't like wildly enjoying life. I was just like looking at the sky, looking at the sun, looking at my kids, just small things. And then, yes, I manifested my soulmate. So it's just, you know, I asked for him and he came, and it was a miracle altogether. So now it's another 10 years of happy marriage and 2 extra kids. I have 5 daughters, so they're all beautiful girls.
Wow, 5 daughters. How wonderful. But you have 2 more kids with him?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Wow, you are busy. So you have, you're a great one to talk to about business and entrepreneurs, and you talk about the spiritual aspect of business. So here in the U.S., we're going through a new paradigm with business. And I would love for you to explain, how can a business be more spiritual? Now, we're not talking religious, we're talking spiritual principles. And how does that help a business?
Absolutely. So in my own journey, right, being the kind of spiritual teacher for so long, right, I was, and also being brought up in Soviet Russia where we almost didn't need money. Okay, everything was free. Can I just say that? So the concept of money or business or being paid or doing this trade was absolutely not familiar to me. So it was interesting that I ended up in States, right? It kind of seems like super unlikely place for me, right? Because like, why would I? But you know, when I look at people, I do all sorts of interesting things with my clients, and one of them is just looking at how their life leads them to be right in the right place for them to really live their purpose, right? And one of the things I realized that in my path, that I do need to be more direct with my teaching. And been doing art. I worked with hundreds of artists, curating, doing all sorts of interesting things that were almost there. That's how I felt. Like it's an impact, but it's a kind of different impact. And I wanted to be really direct. I started writing, and then that's led me to coaching, because when I found that this is the real interaction between real people happens, right? And this is what business is. Business is about you serving other people in whichever way, whether you are giving them some kind of a product or service, whatever you are doing. This is what business is. And good business, we all know, the business is going to expand if you're giving more value. So what is more spiritual than that, right? It is, right. This is the spiritual part. And, I've seen many people who have, let's say, passions or hobbies, and they kind of afraid, they separate, they say, that's my day job and that's my passion, right? And they separate, that's where I make money and this is where I'm filling up. And it's true, actually, in my second book, I write about it, that your passions are meant to fill you up. Uh-huh. The business really happens when your passions are serving other people, which is such a different approach, right? Because then you have to reevaluate how your passions can actually impact somebody. What are the needs of the people, and all of that interesting kind of I would say business work, right? The research work that goes into it, and business people call it market research. Mm. But spiritually, we are just really finding out what the needs of the people in your community are, right? And then you create something for them. And that's, I think this is spiritual. And when you become professional, meaning that you are paid for doing this work, right? And you're doing it regularly, you have a greater chance to really impact more people, more souls, right? And right. I see that when people really step up and become professional, the more people come to them. I would say more souls, because often people ask me, like, I have, souls contracts. I write about that, and that of course our family is our immediate soul family, right? Immediate soul, soulful contracts that we made, and we kind of owe each other, right? That's what we're doing. But with business, this is when we invite new souls. And I notice the universe, as soon as you say, I am ready. How do they say? The student is ready, the teacher will come. When right. Teacher is ready, the students will come. It's the same way, right? If you are you don't have to be a teacher, but if you are, if you are ready to bring your gift to the world, the people who need it will come. Don't worry about it. This is what the universe does for you. But you need to do the first step, I feel. It's super spiritual. I mean, this is the path. I love it.
So the people that are going into business and they are more interested in the money that they're going to make rather than serving people and making them happy, it seems like there's a total disconnect between those two. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I think I've noticed this is often when I speak with somebody who is a business owner and they say, oh, it's not happening for me. I give so much, but it's not, somehow I don't get returns. And there's two reasons, like main reasons that I see. One of them, which is probably you can't receive, you are blocked in some ways. But the other one, which is it happens more often than we think. We are not really necessarily delivering the best value we can. And there are reasons to that, right? There are reasons to that, meaning like, maybe you're not sure of yourself, you're not confident enough, all sorts of reasons. But often when we just, fix that, say, listen, value first, money comes to that, right? Money comes to exchange to your value. So if there's no value, there's not going to be much profit, right?
Right.
And so yes, when somebody thinks, how can I make more money? The answer is very simple, give more value, but make sure that the value is actually real. It's not something you think people want. It's not something you know, it makes you feel better, but it's all your ego feel better, right? But it's more like, is it really making a change in the world? So, and how many people that I've coached had done just that, which is just to evaluate what is the real value. Can I increase the value? And then suddenly the profits increase. So it seems as soon as they kind of see that, I think it's obvious, right? But yes, it's interesting. I had those conversations when people come to business and they come from the place of how can I make money, right? It's the question we ask, right? And is it wrong? Is it right? I'm not sure. I think it's because for the business to succeed, you still have to figure out that you need to be giving value. So it's like maybe the businesses who just care about just the money, they might just fail. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just not going to happen, because if we look at the great businesses and great business owners who are really succeeding, you just think about it. They are bringing enormous value to this world. Right. So it's a direct correlation. So I think it's just logical.
You're right. So you mentioned that people could be blocked. Perhaps they are giving great value. How do you get them unblocked? How do you coach your clients to unblock?
This is one of my favorite subjects, because in a way I had to do it for myself, right? Like, I was the great example of somebody who was totally blocked to receiving, right? Somebody who does work for years and years and years of giving and not understanding that the exchange is happening. And it's interesting that exchange, one of the things I learned on that path, that exchange happened not the way that you think, your ego wants it to happen, right? Mm-hmm. But it's happened, the universe just gives you things, right? Because I have such an amazing lifestyle. And if you think about it, I came from this gray block in Soviet Russia, right? Where money didn't exist. Everybody was poor, right? And just looking how my life took me, right? It's manifestation. It didn't come through some kind of exhausting labor. It was the labor of love, right? It's just, I've always given value, but universe doesn't always does this, like $1 for an hour or something, right? Something like that. And so that was one of the blocks I had. I want to have that exchange happen this way. You know what I mean? So when I realized, it doesn't happen this way. It can happen any other way. It's like, that's what law of energy is. It's just universe brings you. It's not about who that person you helped has to pay you. I actually I do a lot of workshops for free for people. It's just my work in the community. I just give. Is it a selfish action? Like, in a way, it's not selfish. It's just I'm so aware how all of this comes back to me, right? And it could be maybe one client who, pays me great fees, right? But the value that goes to hundreds and hundreds of people, right? So, and I'm very aware of that. I think this is how it works. So this is one of the blocks that I see that people may have, right? Let's say people who are big givers, is that it needs to happen this way, and just accepting the way the universe gives it to you. And another thing was for myself is, of course, fear of success. What do people say? What does being wealthy or rich, what does it mean? What does it mean to charge? Should I charge? Shouldn't I charge? Right? All of those questions I had. So a lot of coaches or a lot of artists, a lot of entrepreneurs which are very creative people and often spiritual people that I attract into my field, often asking those questions. So, and the block is that. The block is just it's a cultural beliefs that they inherited, right? We all know about those limiting beliefs, and they can be cleared, absolutely. And they need to be cleared, because if you are in that place of I'm afraid to become successful in all sorts of different ways, whether and financially included, it's actually just that doesn't serve anybody, because that means you're not serving enough people, right? So
Right. Interesting. So go along those lines of fear of success. Why would people, why would they want not to succeed?
I know, isn't that bizarre, right?
Yeah.
We say this is what we want, and at the same time we are doing this, right? Like, bring it to me. No, 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 no. I don't know what's going to happen. So, in a nutshell, it's a fear of unknown. It's a fear of unknown because I don't know what's going to happen to me, right? I'm going to explode. What do people say? They're not going to like me. So it's interesting. I developed this particular system of archetypes, which is a A-type shadow archetype. So for every person who I need to establish through a couple of questions, what A-type, what's your success type? What makes you successful? How does that happen? And as soon as I know that, I could look at your shadow and say, okay, that's the deepest fear. For example, somebody who really cares about people, the altruist, for example, right? They would be their fear would be the fear of being alone. Yeah, and that means the fear of success, this is what it is. What do people say? I'm going to lose my friends. I'm going to lose my family. Like I'm not going to be able to love my own family, right? To attend to my kids or whatever, right? So it's directly correlated, and and people have different priorities in their life and success, what success really means for them, and the fear is kind of that, right? You can look into it, you can analyze it, and just say, okay, why don't we work on that? And my answer is always one of the first things I do. I say, take a reality check. Take a reality check. When you're anxious, when you're scared, just really look at what would really happen. Like, what's the percentage? What's the statistics? Like, how many people who are successful who had lost their friends? So people start really thinking, calculating. Well, not that many. Maybe they have more friends. It's like. It doesn't depend. Actually, it's lots of unsuccessful people don't have friends or losing friends. Like, just kind of like that. I call it a reality check, right? This is first thing we do to kind of get out of that. Sometimes people have even panic attacks. And I've worked with amazing people who had turned down such massive opportunities for growth, right, in their lives, or great exposure that was coming their way. They just thought, I cannot handle this. Like, I can't, like, I'm not capable of that. And I often say, just breathe and see what could really happen, right? And then that really helps people to just kind of feel grounded. Okay, it's not that bad. So fear of unknown. And of course we all know this wonderful Abraham Hicks tool, which is, don't ask, what if I fail? What if I succeed? What if I will be happy? What if I will be most amazing person in my success? What if? Focus on that.
That sounds like the key. What you just said, we can use that for anything in our lives. Whatever that fear that crops up, we can say, well, what if I am exceptionally happy because of this, instead of, oh no, what if this happens? So it's like we have to take control of the way we think.
Absolutely. And mainly this is like, that's how I started out before I started helping people with business, is really working on your mind. My goodness, our mind is extremely responsive. We don't even know. Like, one of the, and as a psychologist, I definitely, like, what we are even told, that it's so complicated. Oh my goodness, like you got this thing, you inherited this whole set of patterns and beliefs, and oh my gosh, how are you going to live with that? And people get terrified and like, oh, is that all I have in my life, right? And the answer is no. Your mind, it belongs to you, And it's in a way, it's kind of operates in a very simple way. It does exactly what you want, what you truly want. So yes, if you, law of attraction is the same, right? It's not about what you say you want. It is what you truly want. And our mind actually, when we say things like, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to, the only thing I want is just to take day off, right? And then suddenly we get sick for this one day.
Yeah.
Don't understand. But the mind, it's not like some magic happened. It's you told your brain, and your brain is like, okay, she needs to switch off, right? So what we say, what we imagine, how we obviously think, the whole attitude that we have about ourselves, totally can be changed. And I think most of the time, that's just my opinion, maybe because I work with so many people who are ambitious and trying to achieve something different than what they have, right? I say, yes, it needs to be changed. Often we have to become somebody who is that person, right? That has all of those things, or is able to do all of those amazing things in life. We need to grow into that person. And that person might have a different set of beliefs, different attitude, and emotions, big part, because emotions is energy, right?
Right. So the emotions of fear and anger and all of these, what we might call the lower emotions, they are exceptionally important for us to not ignore, but to allow them to be motivators. Absolutely. For us to move beyond them. I mean, that's why they actually exist, so that we can stop the fear. Otherwise, we wouldn't know. We would just be diving over that cliff without stopping and thinking about it. So it is our survival we have to accept, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I think reality check is so important, because sometimes there's a real consequence to your actions. Like, it's not just the fear, you're fearing for a reason, right? It's like, if I make that decision, for example, I've seen, couples, they want to split. There's a real consequence to what's going to happen after that, right? It's right. The effect that you're going to have on kids and I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm saying there's a real consequence to that. Yes, you do need to be very responsible, and fear or guilt or whatever happens has, in a way, its purpose, right? It makes you kind of stop and think a little bit, right? And unfortunately, when we get into that, we can get stuck in a thinking mode, right? Because what we do next, often what people do next, instead of really, because reality check, just the whole concept is really actually looking at the real situation and what would really could happen, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not just about like, I presume that's what's going to happen, right? Often, like I've seen, and just one of my clients is working with abused women, right? And helping them to kind of leave the relationship. And you know how often those women would tell themselves, it's okay, I'm here for the kids. Well, reality is the kids are suffering. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you need to face that, you need to be making decision and not just presume what's going to happen, but actually look at the real consequence of you either staying stuck or staying in the fear. And that fear definitely will show you that is uncomfortable. It's time to change. It's very, very interesting. I find that fascinating. Abraham Hicks, the table of, I think it's 22 emotions.
Right.
Right. And I'm a big believer that feelings need to be processed and released and absolutely, definitely felt. What I've noticed that people often judge themselves, right? They put labels. This is bad. Fear is bad. And joy is good, right? Kind of to simplify. And then they're afraid to be afraid. They are afraid to feel sad. They're afraid to really actually feel, right? And then they numb themselves, and that's another story. But in reality, everything is energy. Everything is energy. Whatever label you put on it, it's still energy. I remember talking to my first daughter when she was 10. She's 20 now, so 10 years ago. And, like preteens, I guess, right? She was going through that period. And she said, Mommy, I just feel so angry. And of course, we also just been, she lost her father. So it was all this, emotions. And I said, my darling, I said, don't be afraid of your anger. It's just energy. And you can, because if you understand that this is just what you have, it's like it could be anything. It could have any different flavor. If you understand that you're so much in control of, how you're going to color that energy, what kind of taste you're going to give it, right? It's really up to you. It could be anger today and it could be love tomorrow. Like, don't be afraid that you have this intense emotion. Just start really owning it and seeing, do I want to change it? Can it be changed? It's called sublimation, right? You can sublimate it. Which means moving it higher and higher up in the hierarchy of your emotions. And that's what happened through it's a spiritual practice, spiritual process when you are moving from the energy that scares you, that makes you feel bad, into the energy that makes you feel good, right? And so, of course, manifest totally attracts different things. Like like I said, it's logical that you would want to be in a different energy, right? But don't be afraid of the low energy. It's still your energy. It's still you. Just be. That's what I mainly teach people very, very quickly, is that be the master of yourself. Be the master of your emotions. Don't be afraid. Don't think that this is something outside of you and it's totally out of my control. It's just my hormones. No, you can actually really be in control of your emotions. It's a good thing.
Exactly, because we always have the choice of how we want to think. And we can choose to take that emotion and deal with it, or we can just let it stay there and just keep on living it and having it affect our lives. So how we are, it's up to us. We can change or not change. We can be happy, we can be miserable. So if a person is stuck and they need to come back, do you make them see it or suggest that they see it as energy, so it's something that they can identify with? It's like, okay, this emotion is stuck in here. I can't figure out what it is. So how do you get them to identify with it? Perhaps they've had it since they were in their early developmental years. Mm. How do they do that? Do you recommend them talking to a coach who's apt to see it better, or more often in the case of not seeing it? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yes, because there are different modalities, different type of coaches for a reason. Because so let's say coaches or healers, right? They're energy healers. You don't need to identify anything. They just move your energy, right? And it's interesting. I've been taught how to do that and worked alongside a most amazing healer.
Really?
She did amazing stuff. And she used to teach me Reiki and, so it could be done this way, all sorts of different ways. So in a way, we kind of, I personally attract in my field, and particularly on my couch here, right, in my office, people who are more intellectual. They kind of prefer to talk about, they prefer to name it, right? And this is also what I prefer. So they're kind of big thinkers, right, in a way. And yes, sometimes emotions are confusing for them. I don't understand, what's happening to me? And often they come with health problems as well, right? It's not just the business is stuck. It's my whole body's aching or whatever. So let's look. And yes, I call it, this is my own method that I developed called fast track psychoanalysis. It's just within one session, we really go really, really deep and understand, like you said, absolutely, yes, it happened in the childhood for the first time. And then you're just repeating the pattern often, the way you react, the way you trigger it. It's all just a repetition of that first trauma you had. And trauma doesn't mean it's been something like super horrible. It's just the little things that affect us when we were children, but we learn and we kind of like, we just repeat that. And we repeat that for one reason: it feels comfortable. That's what the strangest thing is, that often even when we suffered, right, this is something that we know. And the happiness and freedom and unlimited opportunities and possibilities is something we've never seen. It had not been modeled. It's kind of like, I'm not sure if I want that, because I don't know what's going to happen to me if I'm in that space. So you know what I mean? So there's so many things that happen within that kind of conversation with people about releasing traumas or going through those feelings, letting them go, because often people are holding on to them because it's something that they know. And so that's what happens. And in a way, I find it very easy when I just ask, right? It's not when we think it takes, and sometimes we do hypnosis or self-hypnosis sessions where, yes, people can go deeper, but most of the time it's on my mind. We actually, if we are asked and given at least like 3 good minutes to sit in silence, right? And we ask, what's the origin of that feeling within you? Tell me about it. People are like, oh yes, when I was 5, that happened. Okay, let's look at this. And then we look, okay, it didn't just happen to you. It's also, it happened to my dad too. And my grandparents and my uncle. And then you kind of like, okay, you see where you got it from.
Uh-huh.
And now when I used to be a therapist, that was my job. It was never my passion, I have to admit, because I'm such a futurist. So I always feel like, okay, we know why. Can we now move on, right? So that's always been my kind of natural way of, being excited about life, I guess. So with my clients, I say, so now do you want to continue that pattern? Or do you want to get out of it? I've never heard anybody saying, no, I want to stay in it.
Right.
They say, oh yeah, can I just drop it? I said, yes, you can. And that is a healing in itself. So often it's like, and then people walk out, and even the way they sit, you can see that the energy, everything's like, whew. Most of the time they feel so relieved. And really the conversation that really, I think, actually happened was, yes, it's the permission, it's somebody else, coach, somebody they look up to, telling you, yes, you can. It's safe to let it go, because what happens next, we're going to set a plan. We're going to make it happen, right? Because often people feel that when they let go of something, there's a big void. They, of course, don't know that void is so important. Nothing new can come in if it's all like blocked and over with everything. But in a way, it's comforting for them to know that you can envision the new life. We can set it up. We can set steps. You can go there, right? And then they feel like, whew, I'm good. I'm safe here without my baggage. And I can move on, and I know what I want. This is all, I just need certain steps and actions, right?
One of the biggest blocks that I've discovered, even within me, is that it is so comfortable getting into that victim mode, because it's kind of a self-survival. It's not me, I'm not the crazy one, it's you're the crazy one. That affects your business, that affects your entire life, that affects your every relationship. And it's so comfortable being there. And it's like you don't even realize until you grow up and start getting on in years, until someone says, would you please stop the victim mode? And it's like, what do you mean? What does that mean? So it's like people do get set in their emotions and cannot recognize what it is. And that's why we need people like you coaches that can pick it up and say, okay, let's really examine that. And perhaps for the first time, they're going, oh my gosh, I had no idea. But that is a huge, huge thing that stops people from enjoying their life, because they have to stay safe and they have to feel that it's not them, it's others. But there's nothing that can destroy you more than being a victim.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what I like doing is, because I work with such brainy people, right? They really want to know, like tell me how it. So, and I love, of course, because I'm also brainy, so I love kind of like showing them the mechanics of your psyche, what goes into it. We all have this ego, which is really our human part. It's our inner child. Often, this is what gets stuck, right? And you get this amazing people. I work with amazing leaders and like such givers, and oh my goodness, they're so advanced in so many ways. And this is what their spirit is, right? This is what they came here to do. When they are aligned with their spirit, they are flying. They have this huge courage and ability to inspire crowds of people and take them on the journey with them. And all of us, absolutely all of us, even the most advanced of us, have this inner child, the ego, which wants to stay safe. It's like you said, survival mechanism. It was born when you were born, very shortly after, mainly probably when you encountered the very first human being, which is probably your mom, right? And you understood that as a baby, that, my life depends on that person, right? Will I get fed? Will I get hugged? Will I get loved? And I need to be a certain way to get that. Right? Because, so babies are, of course, they start crying, they start smiling, they do things, they learn things, right? This is the kind of, it's not the spirit. Spirit doesn't do anything to please anything. It's just like, I'm just shining that as bright as I can, right? But we are humans, so just by the virtue of that, we all have our human part, means we all have an ego, right? And that means that ego needs to be taken care of, right? And it pops out ever so often, right? And what people don't know is that it's never, the work is never ended. It's not like you can just heal your inner child and that's it. We're going to carry that inner child with us until we go, because we're humans. That's all it is. And that means we constantly, that inner child needs attention. That's when you mentioned that this victim attitude, the mode comes up. Yes, it does come up, because when we're triggered, when our inner child needs security, needs reassurance, what we need to do, we need to just go and give it to her or him, like whoever you have there inside, right? And just treat it as a child, because it is very limited, right? What we understand as adults and as also spiritual beings, we know this vast potentiality that we can go to, right, and really live and realize. But the inner child only knows, I need unconditional love. And what does it mean? I am entitled to be treated with love and respect however I am, even if I'm not taking responsibility, even if I'm not taking action, even if blah, 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 blah. And that's where the blame comes from. Like, they somehow have to do this for me. It's an inner child. If you think about, this is what the 5-year-old would say, right? Mommy, it's your fault. It's raining. It's your fault. Give me sun, right? Maybe not 5-year-old, but a 3-year-old, right? Or 2-year-old. But I have all sorts of kids, so I see them, right? It's mommy, it's your fault. And it's, of course, it's the child. It's the child. And yes, it's going to pop out. What they'll pop up, and that's what the whole fear of success. This is why I see most amazing people who are like really rocking it. They're doing great things, but they still have fears. It doesn't matter. Same fears that anybody else has, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. You have a school that I want to bring up so that everybody can enjoy that. So tell us about your school.
Yes, it's called the School of Inspired Life. The tagline for it just came to me, and that's how I live, and this is what my purpose is to bring to this world. It's soulful and spirited in work and in love. So what I'm bringing to whatever you do in your life, whether it is the job, the career, the business, that output, I would say, whether it is in love, which is your personal relationships, your intimacy, the joy that can happen, because we are humans. We absolutely need relationships. This is so important for us, right? But if you look at it as a continuation of your soulful path, and if you see that you are also a spirit, right? So which is this most amazing light that is meant to bring inspiration to others. This is very, very interesting, right? And if you see that you are not just this body and your ambitions and your fears and your, human self, right? But you have this bigger self, right? Your life will be so enriched. One of my very early clients had told me, she said, Lira, it's like I've now lived in a different dimension. She said, I've never knew that it's actually my life, that it's available to me. And I said, yeah, because when we just live in our bodies and we think that's all we do, right? This is like, and that's where you mentioned people who are doing business from the point of view, okay, I just made so many dollars, I can go eat, I can buy another car, I can go on a holiday, kind of that way, right? It's just what body wants. Right? And then there's another one, which is soulful path, which is what else am I doing through my work, for example, or in my relationships? Why are those people with me? Right? I love this. I love working with, like, looking at why families get together, right? And so the school really is about helping people who want to feel enriched, that their life is not just about, the 9-to-5 job or making money, taking care of the kids, looking at this partner who, kind of trying to have that relationship, but actually seeing it that's your soulmate.
Right.
Like you actually are almost obliged. You owe each other something. You came here because you are here to absolutely impact each other and support each other in growth. And what does that do to relationships? And so when I started doing this, I opened school just recently after having She's Good Passion business, which is just coaching, and just after hundreds of people I've seen, I'm saying the same things, I'm teaching the same things. Why don't I just put it as a curriculum somewhere where people just can go and start learning, right? And so I have interesting kind of programs that come out of that, depending on what people want, whether it is about health. And we have, for example, one of the programs I do is release 20 pounds of pain, right? It's about emotional eating and addictions, right?
Ooh.
And it's about because we're numbing emotions. You said how important emotions are to us. Absolutely. Most of the time we are so scared that we don't even want to feel them. So what we do, we go open the fridge, or we drink, or we whatever, right? Just as soon as I don't feel myself. And it's one by one, we go through emotions, and there's a process that I teach, and I'm having great results with that. People really like, whoo, and they lose weight or whatever else happens as a result. This is great. It's kind of side effect of just not being afraid of yourself anymore. Right, being in peace with yourself, and that is just one of them. And business, I love marketing, business, just showing people how to create businesses, how to really sell their skill, their talent, their gift. If that one of the courses there is about money blocks. In fact, I'm having 2 workshops, like this Friday and next Friday. Is I have this elite mastermind for women, which is also part of the school. It's just for women now, right? We are just getting together, and most of them, we all do. I've done a lot of work on, like, clearing my own psyche of those limiting beliefs, right? And those fears. And now it's a program for somebody else who can do the process, repeat it again when they need it. So anything that would help somebody to live a soulful and spirited life in this human body, this is what this school is for.
Great. Tell us how people can sign up for this school. It's all online, right?
It's partially online. You
okay.
kind of like, in a way, I wanted to say selective, right? In a way, who I work with, right? I've noticed that most people that I attract, maybe 99.9%, are the right people, right? They are totally ready. So, and I often say whenever I'm talking to a big audience, or, even today I just went online and I said, ask your questions, because somebody would be in the crowd, has the same question, right? Your vulnerability, your openness would help somebody else, right? And you will hear the answer. So in a way, people who will come to it's a website, she's School of Inspired Life, she can go there, sign up for the mailing list. But what would probably happen, that you will be probably directed into either one of my groups, right? I would absolutely invite you to really talk with me personally, right? And then we could identify, where would you go? Like, first of all, I'm very direct in a way. This is just my gift, that I can very quickly identify what's not working.
That's great.
So I would just say, okay, we do this little test, the quiz, the archetype quiz, and we say, okay, this is the fear, and you need to work on that. And where do you need to work on that because you want a better relationship? Then you go to your relationship path. Do you want to have a better business, make more money? Okay, why don't you try this program, right? And this is how people kind of get directed, and there's a different ways to work within it. So, but I love interacting with my people. So there are some online courses, but I prefer to be there, answer the questions, whether it's going to be in a big group, smaller group, or directly with me. So there's all sorts of ways to do that.
Okay. That is great. But you can do sessions online for private coaching.
Oh yeah, everything's online. Oh, you in that sense, yes, everything's online. Yes, I do have my own office where I see people, and then there's local places where I do my workshops, but more and more I started taking it online because I have international audience. So yes, we trying just to fit the time zones and make it work for everybody, right? So yes, a lot of things are happening online. My Facebook Lives, there's so much information. It's typically all out there, right? Once it's done, I put it out and people can freely go. Elite Mastermind for Women in Power on Facebook group, great group where you can get specific. Like you get great access. And yeah, we just go on Zoom. We do all sorts of calls, and yeah, absolutely online. That's my day. I'm just sitting in front of computer looking
Yeah, mine
people,
too.
talking to people like you. Yes. Technology. Thank goodness for technology. I'm so excited about this. Like, it's happening. We are so connected. We can be connected to the whole world, right? Yeah.
I know. And I wanted to let you know that actually Russia is number 2 listener of 135 countries. So can you do us a favor and say something to all of our Russian listeners in Russian? Can you do that?
Yeah, this is so funny because I've done an interview some months ago now, and they said, can you say something in Russian to our listeners? And I was totally stuck. Like, oh my God, I forgot. It's been 20 years.
Wow.
I don't speak Russian regularly, but of course I'll try, especially like switching very quickly. Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья. Я так рада, что вы здесь и что вы слушаете меня. И я надеюсь, что информация, которую я вам сегодня дала, поможет вам в вашей жизни, в ваших отношениях с вашими любимыми, с вашей семьей и, конечно, в вашем бизнесе, да, на вашей работе. Спасибо, что вы здесь.
That is so wonderful. And I'm sure that you will be getting, just do me another favor if you don't mind. Can you just tell everyone in Russia how much we love them here and how much we support them in everything?
I will. Джулс только что сказала, попросила меня перевести, что она вас очень любит. Спасибо за то, что вы слушаете ее передачи. И она хочет послать вам огромный привет и пожелать вам добра и счастья. Спасибо.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for delivering that message. I wanted to do it myself, but I don't know Russian. So thank you. You know, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm just captivated, and I can tell, like, you can get to the root cause immediately. No long or talking about it over and over again. You are right to the point. I'm so happy that we met. I want to send everybody to your website because it is great. It's shesgotpassion.com. So it's SHES gotpassion.com. Just go there, check out her site, and she has consultations. So just give her a buzz and talk to her and change your life. That's all it is. Change your life. You are going to love it. You're going to find your purpose. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much, Lira, for coming on to the show.
Thank you, Jules. That's been delightful. You are so amazing. It's just like such a great energy here. I just absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another great show from Law of Attraction Talk Radio. If you'd like to comment on tonight's show, send an email to jules@loaradionetwork.com and have a great week.